Hello folks, welcome to another YouTube video. I apologize for the time that I've been gone, but today we're making some birria tacos. Now originally they are made in Mexico with goat, but you can opt to do them with beef if you would like. The first thing that I like to do is cut them into smaller pieces and what we call a dry brine. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to go ahead and cut them into smaller pieces. And I will be showing you the cuts that we are using. Right now this is chuck pot roast. You can get as much meat as you would like. Another type of meat that you can use would be oxtail and short rib. I'm not using oxtail just for the simple fact that I don't have any. Also, it doesn't have enough meat, but it is great because of the bone in the middle. It gets the broth a lot more gelatinous, but we will be getting into that shortly after. Now what I like to do is I just trim off the excess fat, but we are not going to throw it away. I'll show you as to why. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and trim them up, cut them into smaller pieces because we are going to sear them in a pan with its own fat. But we'll keep getting into that shortly after. Right here, we're just trimming some of the fat off. This is going to be the main meat that we're going to be using. It's going to be chuck roast, just because of the amount of meat, but it still has enough marbling and enough fat. Again, we are going to be using the fat, so don't worry about it. I'll show you. We will also be doing short ribs as well, just because the meat on the short rib is really good, and of course in the ribs meat has enough fat. We do want that fat. The fat is going to be essential to this dish. I keep saying it, but you'll see as to why. For the people that already know how to make this, you know. For the people that don't, keep watching. So these tacos are for a family get-together for Christmas. This is around the time that I made them. I have about 12 pounds of chuck roast. This is about 2 inches thick, so don't ever let anybody tell you that 2 inches is not enough. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put the beef fat in this Ziploc bag because we're not gonna cook them just yet. I'm gonna put the meat with the salt all over it, put it in the fridge, and let the salt sink into the meat so that way it has more flavor throughout. It's not a necessary step, it's just something that I like to do with steak. Basically, steak is what I eat when I use beef, but we're not doing steak. I still do it with all of the beef dishes that I do. So for our broth or our soup, whatever you would like to call it, we're gonna go ahead and chop up a whole onion. Doesn't have to be super fine. I just chopped it in half and half again. We're gonna use about 12 tomatoes, 10 to 12 tomatoes. You also wanna go ahead and chop those up. We're gonna go ahead and put them in a pot, but these are essentially the ingredients that are gonna be used. We're also gonna be using some chilies, some dried Mexican chilies. You'll see those in about a second. The reason we're cutting the tomatoes like this is just so the water in them releases quicker, because that's where a lot of the flavor is going to be coming out of, and of course the chilies. But without the tomatoes, this would not be birria. So these are the chilies that we're going to be using. We're going to be using 5 guajillo chilies. Need to de-seed them and take the stems out. The ancho chilies, 5 of those as well. And then here would be my favorite chilies, which are going to be morita chilies. They're kind of Smell a little smoky, barbecuey, if that makes any sense. And for just a little bit of spice, we're gonna be using chili de árbol. These are a little bit more known in the culinary world. Now into a pot with some oil, we're gonna throw the tomatoes and the onions. We're gonna do half a stick of cinnamon, a tablespoon of black pepper. Let that sweat out a little bit. We're gonna add some salt just to get a little bit of flavor going already. You're gonna stir that around a little bit. Now we're gonna throw in some thyme. I didn't have any fresh, but you could use some fresh if you want to. I had dried, so that's what I'm gonna be using. We're gonna do about a tablespoon and a half of allspice. Mix it around again. Make sure they get a little bit everywhere. You want to mix it all the way up. I'm gonna throw some garlic, about 12 cloves. Now for the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and use the beef fat that we trimmed. We're gonna go ahead and put it in a cast iron pan and let it go for a little bit. Make sure that all the fat is rendered down. Give it a little mix. Make sure that every now and then all of them have touched the bottom of the pan at least a couple of times, just to make sure that all of them are rendering the fat. Now over here where we put all our ingredients with the condiments, I'm gonna go ahead and mix it all the way up. We had already put the chilies in there. I'm gonna go ahead and put them all in a blender. Make sure that the blender that you have does not work very well, like mine. I'm definitely gonna get rid of this. Now over here, where our fat has been frying up, let's release most of the fat that it has. That's what we want. You see all that? Now we're gonna go ahead and keep the lid off. Make sure that all the moisture dries out. Make sure you don't drop any pieces, and if you do, just go ahead and throw them back in there. Just mix it up a little bit longer. I promise you we're almost there. Now put your meat in the oil in batches. Just make sure you don't overcrowd the pan, because if you do, temperature is going to drop. You're not going to get as much of a sear on the meat. What we're looking for is a caramelization. I'll show you in a little bit. So this is the sear that we're looking for. You could probably go a little longer, but I was really hungry and I just wanted to get it over with because I'm starving. Now what we are going to do in this video, we are going to leave it for the next day just to show you how we remove the fat. But I'm of course going to have myself a taco before I do that. Now after that, we're going to go ahead and put them all in a big pot with our marinade. And we're going to put the meat in there with about 6, maybe 7 liters of water. It just depends on how much meat you have in there. Promise you that with the meat, it's going to rise up. Now you want to put this on full blast until it gets to a boil, and then you're going to cover it. Now you want to cook this for about 3 hours. Right now it's only been about an hour, hour and a half. But we're going to go ahead and give it a little mix. Bring some of the pieces of meat there in the bottom, bring them up top, just to see how they're doing. I know they're not done, but I want to show you. By what I mean, you're going to want to. The house smells amazing. You're going to want to do it quicker. I promise you, don't do it. It's still not done. You're going to have a hard time with the meat. That's not what we want. Now, you see this orange fat that's covering the spoon? That's the fat that we're going to use to fry the tacos. This oil is essential for this dish. So after the 3 hours are done, you're going to go ahead and remove the meat, and you're going to strain the broth. Now you see all of this? Basically, it's residues or skins from the tomatoes, the chilies, and the grated condiments like the black pepper and all that stuff. Now you want a clean broth so you could drink it as well. That's what I do. You don't have to. I think it's amazing. Especially in this cold. Right now where I live for Christmas, it dropped to between 30 and 40. This is really cold for Florida, so I promise that this broth will keep you warm. Now we're gonna go ahead and transfer the broth back into the pot and put the pot in the fridge just to let it cool so that fat on top can solidify to make it easier to remove. So with all the meat, you're gonna go ahead and give it a rough chop. You can do it as fine or as chunky as you want. Just to show you, this is really tender. Just like I said, you can chop it as fine or as chunky as you want. I do mine medium just to have some variance, just to eat some. In case you just want to take a spoon and just take a quick little snack. Now we're gonna go ahead and take the pot out of the fridge just to take the fat out. Now this layer on top is the fat that I'm talking about. It's a lot easier to remove the next day, I promise you. Look at how easy it is. I'm not gonna lie, I should have let it go a little bit longer in the fridge, but again, like I said, I wanted to try some. This is done on celebratory occasion or get-togethers. I like doing them, so I did them for the Christmas get-together. And that's about it, folks. Once it's removed, just go ahead and put it back in the fridge, and whenever you're gonna eat them, just go ahead and take them out and start building the tacos. So unfortunately, folks, as you know, these get-togethers can get hectic with a bunch of people. Unfortunately, I was not able to record the process of making them, but if you've made tacos before, you know how they should be. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed your Christmas. Happy New Year's. Thank you for watching.